Picture this. Your manager walks into a meeting room, stands at the front, and super enthusiastically proposes a brand new project approach to the team. Now, one of the employees sitting right there at the table instantly spots a massive, glaring risk in the plan, like they just know it's a terrible idea. But they choose to sit there and stay completely silent. Now, why on earth would they do that?
Well, it's because looping in their head is this exact thought. They're the manager. Who am I to disagree? Fast forward a few weeks, and you guessed it, that exact unmentioned risk absolutely explodes. The project totally derails, time is completely lost, and the team is frantically scrambling to fix it. And honestly, this whole disaster happened purely because that employee felt like the workplace hierarchy demanded compliance over the truth.
So this brings us to a really critical question, one that challenges a lot of our basic workplace assumptions. Does respecting your manager mean always agreeing with them? We often conflate silence with professional respect. But in reality, true professional behavior involves actually engaging in the disagreements that are necessary for your team's success. Your manager definitely doesn't have all the answers. In fact, good managers actively need you to challenge them. But doing it in a way that builds trust instead of completely destroying it, well, that requires a very specific skill set.
So, how do we fix this? Let's dive into 5 practical actions for disagreeing constructively. Decide if it's important, understand purpose, present as perspective, bring facts, and accept the decision. Let's run through how to actually pull these off without burning any bridges.
Action 1. Decide whether the issue is actually important enough to raise.
Before you even open your mouth, you've got to evaluate if the issue is really critical. We have to separate genuine business risks from just our own minor personal preferences or knee-jerk reactions. Especially if you're new to a job or a team, it's super easy to think everything is outdated or just being done wrong. So try this out. Keep a private list of your observations and deliberately wait a few months. When you look back at that list later, you'll almost always find that what seemed like a glaring error on day 1 was actually a calculated trade-off based on context you just didn't have yet. If you complain about every little thing, you completely dilute your own influence. Save your voice for the issues that truly matter.
Moving on to Action 2. Understand your manager's purpose and priorities.
You've got to view your relationship with your boss as a partnership, guided by shared goals, rather than just a one-way street of taking orders. And to do that, you have to understand the unique pressures they're under. See, your manager is constantly balancing 2 really distinct roles. On one hand, their job is managing your team to deliver results. But on the other hand, they are also trying to be a loyal team member to their own manager. They're dealing with tight budgets, strict corporate restrictions, and top-down pressures that you probably don't even see. By recognizing those constraints, you aren't just saying no, you're actually trying to help them succeed in both of those roles.
Action 3. Present your concern as a different perspective, not an attack.
This is where the magic really happens. You can completely reframe a disagreement just by tweaking your language. Compare an outright attack like, "Your plan has a huge implementation risk," to presenting a perspective. "I feel uncomfortable with the implementation risk." See the difference? You aren't flat out saying their plan is objectively bad, you're simply taking ownership of your own unease. This immediately lowers the temperature in the room and opens the door for a real, productive dialogue. Just by focusing on your own feelings, you basically remove the hostility from the interaction.
Next up is Action 4. Support your view with facts, consequences, or alternatives. This shifts you from being someone who just complains about a problem to someone actively consulting on a fix. Don't just show up to your manager's desk, dump a problem in their lap, and expect them to figure it out. You need to systematically weigh the consequences, bring solid facts, and crucially, bring viable alternatives. Instead of demanding a change, try planting a seed. Ask something like, "What are some alternative ways of doing this?" And then give them actual time to think. If you don't demand an immediate response, they are way less likely to get defensive and shut your idea down. And finally, Action 5. Accept the final decision once your concern has been properly heard.
This right here requires the ultimate display of workplace maturity, because at the end of the day, someone has to make the call, and that responsibility usually falls squarely on your manager. We call this disagree and commit. It means voicing your opinion clearly and confidently, but once the final decision is made, you loyally implement it with your absolute best effort, even if you still personally disagree. No half-hearted efforts and absolutely no secret sabotage. You voiced your concern, it was weighed, and now your job is to execute the chosen path like a true professional.
All right, let's take everything we just talked about and totally rewrite our opening story.
Instead of that employee hiding behind fear and letting the project crash and burn, here is the exact constructive script you could use to safely voice a dissenting opinion tomorrow morning. I understand why option A is attractive. I'm concerned about the implementation risk. Could we compare with option B before deciding?
Notice the psychological decision path at play here. First, you anchor to a common purpose by acknowledging why option A is attractive. Then, you state a clear concern using a personal perspective. Next, you imply evidence by asking to compare, and you offer an alternative with option B. And finally, you smoothly guide the whole conversation toward a shared decision. It's collaborative, it's highly professional, and honestly, it works like a charm.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to ask yourself one final question. Are you avoiding disagreement because it truly isn't useful, or simply because it feels uncomfortable? Remember, conflict and differing opinions are a natural, unavoidable part of how organizations work. Disagreeing with your boss isn't insubordination. When done correctly using these exact steps, it is literally one of the most valuable professional skills you will ever master.